in order for ChatGPT to be able to find winning products for you to sell on your store, the prompt you have to put in is...
I've tried letting AI build stores, but honestly, the scary part is
AI will actually write your supplier emails really well, but the moment you actually then need to get a supplier on board, that's when it gets interesting.
the fastest growing members inside Dropship Unlocked are the ones who use AI for...
The real danger here is not AI taking over e-commerce, it's thinking that now you don't need to. Welcome to the Dropship Unlocked podcast. I'm Lewis Smith, the founder of Dropship Unlocked, and with me is our client success coach, James Eardley. Now, when we're not recording podcast episodes or running our own e-commerce businesses, you'll find us helping aspiring entrepreneurs launch their own high-ticket dropshipping stores. So if you're ready to build your own 6 or even 7-figure online business, then head over to dropshipunlocked.com/start. Now, sit back, relax, and let's unlock your potential with the Dropship Unlocked podcast.
Everywhere you look right now, you'll see people claiming that AI can build your entire business for you. That's picking products, that's choosing the suppliers to work with, even building your website and running ads. But is that really true? Today, let's break down whether ChatGPT can actually make you 10K a month with e-commerce, or whether that's just another shiny distraction. So, Lewis, we get this question all the time now. People are asking whether they can just skip the hard parts and let AI do everything and wait for the money to start pouring in. So is there some truth in that? So let's start at the beginning. Can ChatGPT actually run a high-ticket e-commerce business for you?
Not yet, not single-handedly, without any prompting and without a lot of upfront work behind the scenes, if that's the route you want to go down. I'd say AI significantly accelerates what you're already doing. If you have a strategy that is proven and you just want to speed that up, it can certainly help you get through a lot of the tasks that it takes to set up a business. And so we absolutely leverage it at various points along the journey. But if you're going to hand over the decisions of your future business and future income just into the hands of AI and hope that it kind of delivers on validating your niche correctly and negotiating with your suppliers, like all of that stuff, then yeah, I think it's not there yet and you're going to be set up for disappointment. So experience at this stage is still probably the most important thing, because being able to make those judgments as you go through and having a human element of like, I've seen this, I've seen examples of this working in the marketplace. Here's why I think it probably works. Let's test that theory and really kind of put it into practice and get real-time feedback from it actually being put out there into the market is the most valuable way you can learn. And if you can ask others who've already done it, that's going to shortcut your route to success with this. But if you just put it into the hands of AI, you're kind of hoping that its theory then plays out in practice and that the market really responds in the way that it hypothesizes might happen. And that's a risky bet to take. The thing is with LLMs and ChatGPT and AI, they give very confident answers, but they're not always necessarily the correct ones because there's context, there's nuance to it. So think of it as like your superpowered assistant. Of course, like it's great to have there. It can save you hours and hours when prompted correctly, but it's not like an autopilot business builder that you're just going to be able to sit back and rely on. We've all seen AI generated content and it just is obvious and you can see it from a mile away, especially if someone's just built their entire business using that. It starts to fall apart and it's going to become just a carbon copy of everything else out there in the market where they've done the same kind of lazy approach. So if someone tries to get AI to choose their niche for them and just say, right, select me a product to sell, I think the bit where that goes wrong is it will pick what it thinks sounds good on paper, but not what the market might actually want at that time and that moment in time. So you've got to be able to overlay your own sense of, there's like a feeling and like a gut instinct with this stuff that as you're going through, we take a very data-driven approach to niche validation. We have like a 9-step criteria for niche validation in our home turf advantage model. And one of the things that I always overlay on those criteria, as well as it being very much backed in data, is how do you feel about it? Like looking at the market research you've done, looking at the other stores, looking at the the suppliers and the competitors. How do you feel about going into that niche? Does it feel like an angle that you could work with? Does it feel like the kind of business that you could run? If you just hand that over to AI, sometimes it's just going to act purely based on rational information from on a sheet of paper, but that doesn't then pan out in reality. And so the same goes for suppliers. You can use AI to draft emails to suppliers, but if you're going to use AI as your first outreach tool to suppliers, expect them not to get back to you. And because everybody else is probably doing the same thing, expect to then kind of not be taken seriously when you do eventually make contact with them, if they ever get back to you at all. The good old-fashioned approach of picking up the phone and speaking to another human, or even better, getting in the car, getting on a train and going to see a supplier face to face, like I know you and I have for all of our suppliers, that human to human interaction, that trust that's built from doing that, is something that is going to be a long time before AI is going to be able to replace that realistically. So I know members of ours in the program, like Suraj, who did, I think it was like £21,000 in his first month, and he's gone over to make well over £100,000 from his business. But he didn't succeed because AI told him what to do, although he definitely leveraged it along the way. He definitely used AI as a tool in various parts of the process, but he didn't just sit back and say, I'm going to just write a super prompt and have AI build my whole business for me. He succeeded because he used tools inside an already proven framework and was around a group of experienced business owners who could guide him on the mistakes that they'd learned from in the past. And that's why he succeeded.
That's right. When you can apply AI to a model or a method that's already been proven, then you can just speed up the parts that are going to slow you down. So I'm very grateful for the AI tools that we have now, but I don't for a second think that it could replace me completely. And the example that you went to straight away, so choosing which products to sell, is a really good example of why it's halfway there, but it doesn't go the full way. So, and it's also the danger of the way that it tells you the answers with that confidence and that patting you on the back, telling you're doing a great job. That's very dangerous in business, because the market won't pat you on the back unless you're actually delivering the value that they want. So, for example, if I think, okay, I'll tell ChatGPT to tell me a product to sell, and it comes up with the idea of a garden fork, it will tell you in the most confident answer ever that a garden fork is perfect, and it will give you 2-3 reasons why it's the best dropshipping product since sliced bread. And then if you were to apply that to our proven method, you'd start to very quickly find out that it doesn't meet our criteria that we've seen proven time and time again. For example, the average price would be far too low, and the customer demand might be very seasonal in certain times of year. And so we'd be able to rule it out for those reasons. And then the next argument would be, well, can't you plug in those arguments to ChatGPT to start to take that into account? But from trial and error and research, it doesn't have access to accurate data today to make those judgments. And it also can't make judgments based on common sense sometimes, like the average price. It might try and jump through hoops to try and please you and get the answer that you want to say that it is a great product. So yeah, that for many reasons, that's a good example of why AI can help with certain parts of the process, but there needs to be that experience, that touch of knowledge about how can we apply this to a system that already works. And if you want that full system, we've laid it out on the podcast before. Episode 135 is literally titled The Easiest Way to Start Dropshipping, and we've laid out the blueprint for how to get started. So it's a perfect side note after listening to this episode of getting more in depth with how the process actually works to start e-commerce today. But Lewis, let's get into actually breaking down how you think about AI and how it does come in to help with setting up a business. What parts of building an e-commerce business can AI genuinely help speed up right now?
The first thing is just brainstorming, just coming up with some initial ideas that you can then put through our niche validation criteria to help you whittle down your list of ideas to kind of a list of finalists that would all work and that all meet the criteria. Then you can start to think, okay, of these that would all work and are all proven, what can I get excited about? What do I actually want to run a business about? And that's the bit that, AI is not going to necessarily know what you could get passionate about. That has to come internally, really, if you're going to build a business around it. So that's probably the first thing, coming up with ideas for niches. Also, like which product bundles, if you decide to sell a certain type of product, if you're going to sell barbecues, and then you say, okay, so what could go with a barbecue? You might not be in that target market yourself, But AI is going to be fantastic at being able to say, well, people who buy barbecues might also need like the meat smokers or the outdoor fridges or the coolers or the recipe boxes or whatever it is that could go as an accessory, as a bundle, as some kind of like after sell or upsell with those items for a target market that you might not be that familiar with. So I think it's really good for that type of thing. Also like angle generation and even image generation, like content and website content generation, coming up with lifestyle images of the products that you're selling in action being used, or product descriptions, turning, a list of boring features that a supplier might give you in a description into benefits to the customer. Copywriting 101. What are the reasons why the customer's life might be improved as a result of buying this product? Not just what are the sizes and features and, gadgets that the thing has. What do those actually mean for the customer? And that's really something that AI can do really well. And coming up with that copy, maybe even saying to it, if a customer was going to buy this from my website, what might the frequently asked questions be for this item? And then having it come up with a list of both questions and answers for you to either work into your product description or have listed in an FAQ section on that page, that product page. Even like email templates, what messaging can you come up with? Can you come up with a Black Friday angle for us, or a Valentine's Day, or a Christmas sale, or just something that like allows you to almost have a marketing person on your team to be able to just come up with the copy, the content, the ideas, the imagery that you can then run through a human brain, I think is the most important bit here, to make sure that it's on point and it works, and it hasn't hallucinated like AI can often do and just come up with random things that aren't true in reality. The other part of it is when you're running your ads. So Google Ads is a core component for this model and the home turf advantage, and making sure that your headlines are optimized, and that if you want to test like various different angles of headlines and you're struggling to think of how else you could position the product or an ad, well, AI is great for that because you can feed it the information you have so far and then start to have it ideate and come up with completely new angles where you can add those in. So that's where ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, they really shine. They really come into their own for that. One of our members of the program, Adam, who we've had on the podcast recently, he went from working in a hospital, that was his job previously, to doing £307,000 in 8 months. Now, he used AI heavily along the way to speed up things like product description rewriting and ad copy testing and just his overall store build. But again, he didn't just sit back and say, ChatGPT, build me a dropshipping business. Like it would have never happened. It took grit, determination. It took him showing up. It took him calling suppliers, going to see suppliers, like really doing the things that an entrepreneur does and that are exciting as well as you're building this new freedom vehicle for yourself. But he knew where to use AI and where to use his own human instinct as well. And I think that's really important. Sally is another member of our program who's been using AI extensively recently to support her on her journey. But again, she realizes that it's that relationship she has with the suppliers that makes this whole thing work. She can use AI in various parts of the business, and she absolutely does. But it's really her work and her effort that got it to the stage that it's doing the sales that it is. And I know we had Sally on the podcast fairly recently as well. Now, the people that are using ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, whatever your AI LLM tool of choice is, if you're using that to just reach out to suppliers and you're just kind of putting together email templates and sending them to suppliers, you've got to be careful, as we said, that there's a real human touch added to it. That's why we always say that a phone call is the best way to rise above the noise, set yourself apart from all of the other people out there who are lazily just sending AI generated emails to suppliers, hoping that that seals the deal for them. Do you really think you're going to be the first person to have come up with that idea? And are you potentially going to burn your bridge with that supplier by taking that lazy approach? So just think about it. It's one phone call could take you 5 minutes and you sign a supplier that you go on to generate millions of pounds in sales for over the coming years. It's worth your time. It's like having a junior copywriter who can come up with an idea or a first draft for you, but you always want to make sure you kind of run the manager's eye over it, i.e. yours. Make sure that you're kind of checking things before they go out, rewriting them and using them as a framework for ideas or things that you may have missed, not just as a substitute for you actually using your own input.
Exactly. I think I completely agree. I think people miss the part where it's a hybrid approach between you and AI, and people want to jump to maybe a point in the future where you just send their prompt to ChatGPT and it does everything for you and it can think on your behalf. But right now, certainly a hybrid approach is what's working so well for people. And I think that will continue for a while into the future, where people are driving the direction and they know what to ask for in ChatGPT. They know where to look to find the treasure because they've got a framework, they've got a guidance that they're following. And so they can just bring in AI to help them on that path that's already been laid out for them. So otherwise, you're just asking the wrong questions. You don't know whether they're giving you back a correct answer or not. So it's a nice balance. And an interesting thing that we've noticed with certain people that are getting in touch with us that are trying to build the dropshipping business, and they have been speaking with ChatGPT and trying to use it as an e-commerce consultant. They tell us what the ChatGPT has been explaining and patting it on the back about how good of a job they'll do if they do a certain thing in their business. And we can immediately see that it's taking you down the wrong path. And we've tried those things before. And so we've got to then have the guardrails up to say, this is what's worked before, stick to what we know is working. And rather than ChatGPT, which is hypothesizing and it's trying to give you the answers that you want to hear. So it will definitely heavily lean toward, if you tell it, I think this is a good idea, it will say, yep, that's a fantastic idea to set up this all singing, all dancing Google Ads campaign. And then we could just pull you back in the right direction to what we know works and has been proven time and time again for the members on the podcast. So it's approaching it knowing that it will speed up certain parts, but I think it's crucial that you know where to look. And it's a tool that can be used, but the people who will get the most value out of the tool is the people who know how to use it correctly. And to know how to use it correctly, you need to know what the right answer is when it gives you it back, or you need to have an idea of which direction it's pushing you into and whether it's the right way to go. So yeah, just that's been so instrumental in the way that I've been scaling my business is by getting AI support, but having people around me ultimately to get their opinions from a place of experience. I think there's a danger that we should talk about, and it's people who do rely a bit too much on AI. So where have you seen people go wrong, Lewis, in your experience, if they've been relying too heavily on AI?
Well, yeah, it's really interesting. It's like you said, it becomes this almost echo chamber where the AI tool is just going to reinforce exactly what the customer wanted it to say. Like, for example, if I open up ChatGPT now and I'll speak to it live and let's see if this actually happens. So this will be kind of a live demo. So I'll say, so I'd like you to help me in just a couple of sentences. Could you justify to me why selling 50 pence plastic biro pens is going to be the best possible niche for my e-commerce business into the future?
Absolutely. Well, let's say that selling 50p plastic pens could be your golden niche because, in theory, it's the ultimate everyday item. Everyone needs a pen at some point, right? It's a super low barrier to entry, and you could become the go-to for reliable, affordable writing tools. Plus, once you've got that customer in the door for a pen, who knows what else they might pick up? It's a fun thought exercise.
Yeah, I guess the world's really my oyster if I sell plastic 50p pens to the market. I mean, what about if I were to go and sell, I don't know, like premium, high-end, high-value, high-ticket items from UK suppliers that could arrive with next-day delivery and where I only need a couple of sales per week to replace my full-time income? Like, what about doing that instead of selling the pens?
Well, that definitely sounds a lot more like your style and a much better fit for what you're aiming to do. Instead of selling a ton of 50p pens, focusing on premium high-ticket items from UK suppliers with next-day delivery is right up your alley. You'd only need a handful of sales a week to hit your income goals, and you're leveraging that home turf advantage that you know so well. It's a great way to play to your strengths, attract those ideal clients, and build a business that's not just about volume, but about real value and freedom.
There we go. So interesting exercise because I guess it's just, obviously it's a bit of an extreme example, but the point is that could have been anything. I could have gone down that rabbit hole of trying to sell biro pens because AI told me that that was the approach. And like you said, James, it's trying to pat me on the back and give me all the reasons why and justify why it came up with that as an answer in the first place. And unless I have the experience to steer it away from that and be like, well, actually, how am I ever going to succeed in terms of running ads to a 50p pen when I can't even, I'm probably only making, I don't know, 40p profit or 50p, 30p profit per sale. How am I ever going to acquire those customers? How am I ever going to fulfill that many orders? If they're coming from China, like, it doesn't know the problems that we've experienced because it hasn't had personal experience of doing that. So it just kind of looks at things very rationally and like big picture and sources this information from all over the internet. Like, you don't even know the sources that it's pulling from. And then when you steer it in another direction, suddenly it's like, well, actually, yeah, no, that's a much better idea. Again, just patting me on the back. So it's just a kind of an interesting thought exercise, I think, because how many times are we being steered by AI subconsciously without us knowing that actually it's taken us down a suboptimal path? It's not the right route for us long term, or it's a route that could work in theory. Like, I'm sure I could sell 50p pens, but is that really going to give me the end result lifestyle that I want? Probably not. And so it doesn't know about like the margins that your suppliers are going to offer, because the suppliers we work with don't publicize their margins. They don't have price lists on the internet. They typically send them to us in private when we sign them. And so it's just not going to know those things. So I think trusting every answer that AI gives you, even though it can sound very convincing, it sometimes is just completely wrong and out of context and just doesn't get the nuance that you need for it. So that's where skipping the real human work can become dangerous. So imagine if you're doing the same thing for like supplier outreach or negotiation or just like general decision making in your business. We've seen time and time again people trying to generate like the perfect niche idea or find winning products using prompts, but AI has no idea which UK suppliers actually exist that offer good margins, that offer next day delivery, that behind the scenes have a dropshipping contract arrangement that's not publicized, and who have good customer service that responds in a timely manner, and who fulfill their orders with next day delivery. Like, that stuff's just not really out there. It's kind of behind the scenes, and you need to speak to the humans to get the answers on that. So inside Dropship Unlocked, like, we very much want to harness AI. Like, we are very pro AI, but we want to make sure we're responsibly combining what AI can do for us with real suppliers and real conversations and like actual market response rates. What are customers buying? What are they not buying? What questions are they asking? And how can we improve our site according to what the actual market tells us, not what AI thinks the market might tell us? Nothing beats real market experience. And just look at some of our members in the program, like Mason, for example, who was a professional footballer before he joined us, scaled to £70,000 and beyond. But he didn't just do that by replying on a prompt generator and then plugging it into ChatGPT and being like, go on then, build the whole thing and come up with a niche. And like, he used those tools, but it was him that actually built it. This is the bit, like, you are the secret ingredient in your own business. You are the human element that makes it go from an idea on paper to a thriving, profit-generating business machine. So I think that's key. You've got to follow a roadmap, use AI at every step that you can along the way to enhance the process, but not replace it.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think that's the big message here that you're getting across really clearly with that example, is that AI will accelerate your success. It's 100% quicker today than it was when we started to do the same business model that we did. Because of AI, it's going to speed up elements 100%, but it won't create success for you, and it will just take you in the direction that you're pushing it. So you have to be the one that sets the direction for AI. Otherwise, as the example showed, it will just say yes to whatever it is that you think is a great idea in the moment, and then it's too late before you find out that it's the wrong answer, and then you won't want to restart to get started again. So it's important that you go down the right route before relying too heavily on AI. You need the roadmap. You also need the skill set. You want to put real supplier partnerships in place and ultimately have human decision-making at the heart of your business based on experience of people around you who have succeeded. And that's going to trump AI every day of the week. So Lewis, for someone who's excited about all this, they're looking into AI, they've heard about the fact that we are actively adding AI into a program every week, and we're making some big updates soon, which I'm sure we'll announce on the podcast. But they are still worried about how far AI will take them, and they want to know what's the most realistic path to 10K a month. Where should they start?
Having a proven system that's not just a theory that AI has generated, but like a proven system that our members have been through time and time again, that's going to be the key to making all of the rest of this stuff work. So if you have that as your kind of foundation, a system that actually works in the UK with high ticket suppliers again and again, then you can use AI with some kind of guardrails of being like, right, this is the strategy, but within the confines of this, can you now help me come up with the content for the product page? Or can you now help me come up with some different ad angle ideas for the product? So use AI for speed of ideas and what am I missing type questions, but not the overarching strategy. Don't fall into the trap of just thinking that the AI is your advisor, because you do not know what path it could take you down, and you could waste years of your life going down that path only for nothing to work. It's then not going to have any accountability, because then you'll say, hey, the bio empire that I tried to build didn't work and I've poured my life savings into it. It's then going to be like, oh, really sorry about that. Yeah, we should probably look and try a different strategy. And it's like, well, why didn't you tell me that at the beginning? That's the bit I think that people struggle with. It's like knowing that they're potentially in that echo chamber and being able to guard it the right way to prevent them from being taken down the wrong path. So if you're listening to this and you think, I want to build a business, I want to do it the right way, I want to use AI, I want to leverage it as an advantage to speed up my journey, but I don't just want to use it as a crutch and take the lazy route and just say AI built my business, because I know where that will lead, then you can head over to dropshipunlocked.com/start. We'll show you the exact way that we built high-ticket e-commerce stores right here in the UK, and all of our members have too, with the right blend of your own personal human judgment, which is your secret weapon, and AI acceleration as your advantage.
Are you enjoying the podcast? We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment or a review and we might feature it in an upcoming episode. And for detailed show notes and resources, visit dropshipunlocked.com/podcast.
If you found value in any episode of this podcast, please could you take just 10 seconds to leave us a quick 5-star review on your favorite podcast app? It helps us more than you can imagine. And who knows, you might just hear your comments read out on the show. Thanks for being a part of our community. Your support helps us keep delivering new episodes to you every week.
Now, it's that part of the episode where we're going to highlight a question that's come in from a listener. So thank you very much, Robbie, for getting your question in. I'll be putting that to Lewis in just a second. But if you have any questions that's come up in your mind while listening to today's episode or watching, all you need to do is comment on the YouTube video version of this episode, and we won't just answer it in the comments. We may also feature it on an upcoming episode. So the question from Robbie is, I've tried using ChatGPT to pick my niche, but surely all the niches that it suggests will be generic. How do I know which to choose?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a perfect question, Robbie, and it's very topical for this episode topic, isn't it? Because you're right, ChatGPT is only going to have the information that it can source from wherever it's sourcing its information from across the internet, but it's not using a specific defined formula, and it doesn't have access to the real-time data of how many active searches are happening on Google in the UK for this specific subset of products. You have to use tools at the moment to be able to gather that information, but then there's also a common sense element on top of it, and then there's looking at the competitors in that market, and then there's speaking to some of the suppliers, and then there's being able to make a call based on what you're seeing in terms of average core price, for example, to make sure that the products you're selling are high value enough for you to make a good profit per sale. Those things, if you just entrust that to an LLM, it's going to start to really fall apart, and then later, if you built your business on that shaky foundation, don't be surprised when it doesn't work. So yeah, it really, it's great for brainstorming those initial ideas, but it can't validate a niche in real time. It doesn't know the margins that your UK suppliers are going to give you. Obviously, you can feed that stuff in as you get it, so you can be using it as a tool as you go, but it won't know what items do they have in stock, how much demand is there for certain items that they have, what are the real market conditions right now. So that's why having objective criteria, learning to review and analyze the different price points of items, the supplier availability, the customer demand through the research tools we use. Inside Dropship Unlocked, we guide you through applying all of those criteria to your niche so that by the end of it, you have a group of winning products that you are passionate about, but are also based on fundamental data and insights that you've gathered in real time from the market that are up to date, present. And so then you just take it one step at a time. You enter those 9 different niche validation criteria until you get to the point of knowing exactly which products to sell and being confident that they're going to work because you understand why they'll work, not because some AI tool told you they might.
Brilliant. Yeah, very topical question. Thank you, Robbie, for that one. And yeah, completely agree, Lewis. So on to the review that we also like to highlight on every episode because we want to give you a shout out if you say nice things about the podcast. So a big thank you to John McDougall He left a nice Apple review that we're going to read out on the podcast. So John said, when so many online business programs are full of noise, hype, and hot air, it's a pleasure to listen to a podcast that goes into the details of what it takes to start and grow a real online business.
Thanks very much for the review there, John. That really means a lot, and that's exactly what we aim to do. So we're really glad to hear that you've been enjoying the podcast. Now, before we end this episode, could we ask just a quick favor of you? Could you leave us a quick review for our podcast? It helps us so much more than you might imagine. It takes you just a few seconds, but your support keeps us motivated to bring you the best content that we can week in and week out. We'd love to hear what you think. And like we did for John, we might be able to share your review in our upcoming episodes.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Dropship Unlocked podcast. We hope you are leaving with new insights and inspiration to fuel your entrepreneurial journey.
To kickstart your e-commerce business, head over to dropshipunlocked.com/start. It's the perfect place to start and get access to resources that will help you build your business from the ground up.
And don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more episodes packed with strategies, tips, and success stories. Plus, if you enjoyed this episode today, a 5-star review would mean the world to us, and you might even get a shout out on the next episode.
Thank you for choosing to spend your time with us today. We can't wait to bring you more insights on the next episode of the Dropship Unlocked podcast.